Wow.
That's about as that's about the verbal picture you would get of somebody caught with their pants down. That's that's basically what it is.
Yeah, that was a big yikes. As many of you know, debate raged almost all day on Tuesday regarding the Conservatives' confidence motion. In most cases, the content was repetitive and uneventful. However, that was until the Liberal MP for Vaughan Woodbridge got up to speak, only to have Michel Ferreri end his Liberal career, and no, we are not exaggerating.
Let's take a look.
We have had the backs of Canadians, and we will continue to do so. Why is that, Madame la Présidente? Because we have put in place transformational pillars to strengthen our social safety net, create the conditions for economic growth and wealth creation and job creation, and move the country forward. So when I think about the Canada Child Benefit, which we put in place in 2015, which now sends nearly $30 billion in payments to families across the country, including nearly $100 million, over $100 million in my riding of Vaughan Woodbridge, helping tens of thousands of kids in my riding, tax-free monthly, no longer sending checks to millionaires, correct? Lifting almost 400,000 kids out of poverty. Substantive measures. We think of now the Early Learning and National Daycare Plan, where in the province of Ontario, fees have been reduced 52.7%, and working in collaboration with the Progressive Conservative government in Ontario, we will see $10 a day daycare on average by September of 2025. And we know it's working, Madame la Présidente, because my daughter's in daycare and we've seen a reduction where our family, who is blessed with much, and I have much gratitude for our blessings, have seen over $10,000 in after-tax savings. Those are real savings for families.
Time out.
So it's a little hard to follow this, and I think it's especially more difficult considering our son is not in daycare. He's old enough to be in school full time, so we don't really know necessarily the price of daycare. But it sounds like this MP who's making over $200,000 a year is benefiting from a program that's meant for middle-income families, low-income families, to help them be able to afford daycare so that they can go to work. And it sounds like it's also benefiting the rich.
Yeah. Full disclosure, the introduction to this had me calling this guy a bunch of names, and we took it out.
And Tanya insisted on taking
but
it.
But now you're seeing why I wanted to call this guy a bunch of names. So this is an MP, makes $200,000 a year, and has the gall to stand up in the House of Commons and brag that I'm saving $10,000. Thank you very much.
Well,
and he's taking up a spot. This is the most important part. He's taking up a spot in that daycare that you have all of these other middle to low income families waiting up to 2 to 3 years to get into.
Well, and this is the part that I don't understand based on the statement that was just given, as well as based on what we do know about $10 a day daycare. But again, the Liberals are always criticizing the Conservatives for saying, they're implementing programs that are only going to benefit the rich. This road program right here is benefiting the rich. So when you've got a MP who's clearly being paid over $200,000 a year, we know that because it's public record.
Well, he's even admitting to being wealthy because he says, my family has been blessed with much. And
then taking advantage of programs that taxpayers are paying for. That subsidy didn't come from nowhere, even if it's not the $10 a day daycare. It came from someplace. Whether it came from the province, whether it came from the municipality, whether it came from the federal government, somebody is subsidizing that daycare in some manner.
So it's ridiculous that this guy is standing up saying, hi, everybody, I'm wealthy and I'm saving $10,000 on daycare, and I'm taking up a spot in a daycare that many other families are waiting for. That's gross.
Where 750,000 Canadians who could not afford and access a dentist or have gone to one. Measures that help Canadians. Now, Madame la Présidente, we must create the economic conditions to ensure that we can afford these generous programs, much like increasing old age security by 10% to over 3 million Canadian seniors aged 75 plus. Made a real difference in the pockets of Canadian seniors. Madame la Présidente, I like to refer this decade, despite some of the headwinds we face, and we know the opposite party has a notion of what Canada is. I have my own notion, so I'll disagree with them. I believe Canada is the best country in the world. I'll repeat that. I believe Canada is the best country in the world. Not because we're perfect. Yes, we're a work in progress, but I don't think, and I know this, there are millions and millions of people who would move here tomorrow morning, and I would rather not live anywhere else, like to vacation in some other places where it may be sunny, but this is the best country. And Madame la Présidente, this is Canada's decade.
You mean the millions of people who move here and then find out what a disaster it is, and then a third of those people move away? Are those the people that you're talking about?
Yeah, it's true. Approximately 1 in 3 new Canadians leaves within the first 2 years of getting here.
And that's because the promise of Canada that they've been sold is a lie. And they show up here and they see how the regular citizens who've been here for generations are suffering under this government. And they say, whoa, this is not what I was told Canada was. Maybe I should move somewhere else. So, yeah, and as far as it being Canada's decade...
Last decade was Canada's decade when Stephen Harper was the Prime Minister. Maybe I'm biased because I'm not really old enough to remember much before that. I mean, we wanted for nothing when we were children, but I didn't really pay attention to politics when I was 8, you know what I mean? But to me, the decade that Stephen Harper was Prime Minister, or the 8 years, it was way better than this. We've said before, we were able to get married, buy a home, start a family. We wouldn't be able to do any of that under Trudeau right now.
Well, and the only chance that this decade has to be, is in terms of the decade of Canada, is if there's an election within the next year and the Conservatives turn it around in the last half of the decade.
When we think about what we've put in place as a government, working with unions, working with industry, this is Canada's decade. Yes, interest rates are descending. Yes, consumer confidence in Canada has hit a 29-month high, according to Bloomberg Nanos. But you think about our strategic investments in artificial intelligence, in electric vehicles, in the critical minerals and the supply chain for electric vehicles, where Bloomberg NEF has rated us the #1 country in the world. #2, depending on the year, versus China, but #1. You think of our investments in Canadians, in learning. So you put all those measures in place, working with the provinces on our electricity system, a competitive advantage in the sense that over 90% or almost 90% of Canada's electricity system is green. Working with companies in Alberta, Dow Chemical, the $10 billion investment, Lind, $2 billion investment, supporting Atlantic Canadians, ensuring that electricity rates remain low to remain competitive and attract industry. Madame la Présidente, this is truly Canada's decade. Looking around the world, we have what the world wants.
Oh, we sure have what the world wants, but guess what?
You won't give it to them?
Apparently there's no business case for it.
Right. So ridiculous.
Like, we have a lot of what the world wants, but you don't want to give it to them. You don't want to sell it to them.
Because it's bad for the environment.
Like, have you talked to your boss? And you need electricity available for all Canadians, because otherwise you get Alberta in the middle of winter having blackouts and brownouts. You get Hamilton having brownouts. You get all these other cities having brown, and you're bragging about our electricity grid. What is wrong with you?
We have the human capital, looking at the sectors around the world, whether it's the advantage in Alberta on feedstock, whether it's British Columbia and the human capital that is powering that province forward in its film industry, whether it's here in Ontario with regards to the electric vehicle sector, whether it's with regards to the fintech sector, looking at the province of Quebec, and the aerospace industry, which transcends many parts of the country. We have what the world wants. And Madame la Présidente, we're doing it in a way where our fiscal finances, our budget, is the envy of the world. We have a 1% deficit to GDP ratio.
Our budget is the envy of the world.
Yeah, because they can point and laugh at us and go, "Oh, thank God we're not Canada."
Yeah, like you say that with a straight face.
Yeah, like our budget is a nightmare.
And then he says, "Oh, we have a 1% debt to GDP ratio." You really want to talk about that again? You really want to be including the Canada Pension Plan as an asset when you're trying to use that statistics? It is disgusting that you guys keep using that stat.
It's dishonest.
It's completely dishonest because that's not your money.
No, it's not. It's Canadians' money.
We pay into it our entire frickin' lives, and it better be waiting for us when we actually retire.
Thank you.
Questions and comments? The Honourable Member for Peterborough Court.
Thank you so much, Madam Speaker. And I was fortunate enough to be able to door knock in the summer in Vaughan Woodbridge, the member opposite's riding, and certainly the constituents there do not have confidence in the Prime Minister. But my question to the member is, for over a year, he has been contacting folks on this side of the House via text and phone, asking if there is a spot for him in the Conservative Party of Canada. So today he says he has confidence in his government, yet he wants a spot over here. So why would we believe anything he has to say?
Wow.
What?
Shut down.
What? Dude, how can you go back into caucus now?
Oh my gosh, how
What?
embarrassing. You know, I've said it a few times before that I think it's very dishonest when MPs just like jump from one ship to the other. There's a few exceptions where I think it makes sense to go from one party to the other, especially if the party's like really changing from under you. I can't imagine how this individual can be supporting the Liberal government today and saying he's going to vote confidence in the government and the government deserves to have confidence. And meanwhile, he's asking the Conservatives if they have a spot for him in their caucus. He wants to run for the Conservative Party. If you're going to do something like that, you cross the floor. You don't hang out on the team that you allege that you have confidence in, but meanwhile you're trying to jump ship to the winning team, but you're not actually crossing the floor to do it. Like, that's just dirty.
Well, and here's the thing. So apparently he's been trying to do this for a year. Well, I guess a year ago is when he saw the Conservatives starting to hit 40 points in the polls and probably decided, I better go on the other side because it looks like this side's going down. And if you look at the polls of this guy's riding, yeah, no wonder why he wants to cross the floor. No wonder why he wants to be part of the Conservative Party. But, you know, he wants to make sure that he's actually going to be secure before he does that.
Well, and this is what I don't like about politicians that jump from one team to the other is that
You can't trust them.
well, not only that, but it seems like they just want to be on the winning team. It seems like they don't really have any convictions. They don't believe in what the party stands for. They just want to be on the winning team so that they can keep their job.
It would have been much more believable, you know, if this guy, you know, made his change like a year and a half into, you know, the new term. You know, because then you could argue he would say, okay, you know, we're far enough away from an election, but I see this party just moving far away from what I signed up for, and you know, I'm going to be doing it on principle. I can't stay in this party. That's a little different.
Yeah, that's totally different.
But he's been trying to do this ever since it's been completely obvious that the Conservatives are going to be the winning team, like Tanya said. Like, and kudos to the Conservatives, because they could have said, sure, come on over, we'll take another seat. No problem.
Because the thing is, a lot of the time in the ridings, it's the individual whose name is recognized, right? So the Conservatives, it may be to their advantage to have somebody who's already a Liberal MP would then start running for the Conservative Party because constituents will recognize the name. Now he's in the new party, the party that the constituents want. Okay, definitely we're going to vote for him. But they're sticking to their guns and they're sticking to their principles, and it doesn't sound like they're letting him on board.
Well, and this isn't the first MP that's tried to join the Conservatives either. There's an independent ex-Liberal as well that's tried to join the Conservatives, and he's been roiled up in scandals. And the funny thing is that whenever he gets a chance to ask a question in question period, he's trying to like tear down the Prime Minister, to basically look over at the Conservatives and say, wink, wink, see, I'm one of you guys.
Oh, it's Kevin Vuong, isn't it?
Yeah, it's Kevin Vuong.
And there was also the candidate who ran against, I believe it was Jamil Javani out in Durham, if I'm not mistaken, wanted to run for the Conservative Party. The Conservative parties chose Mr. Javani to run for them, and then he went and ran for the Liberals.
Yeah, surprise, surprise. And it looks like the Conservatives made a really good choice in not having that guy run for them.
Oh, the Conservatives made a great choice in having Mr. Javani run. He's awesome.
So this is what you get, right? This is what you get. Now, that was the question. Because the rules of debate are you make your speech, and then you get questions, you have to answer them. So, what do you say?
The honourable member for Vaughan Woodbridge.
I will not entertain the member's question. Thank you, Madame the President.
Wow. Wow.
That's about as that's about the verbal picture you would get of somebody caught with their pants down. That's basically what it is.
Yeah, that was a big yikes.
So,
oh man,
dude, you are screwed. Have fun being a pariah in the Liberal caucus from here on out. And it's funny that Ferrari just kept that in her back pocket until right now. So he's going to have to go and hang out with his Liberal buddies, and they're all going to be looking at him being like, traitor. So have fun with that guy, and have fun with Trudeau. If I were Trudeau, I'd kick you out of caucus, but you know what? They need the votes as much as anybody.
I was going to say, they need to keep as many MPs as they can.
So have fun with that one.